What is the best way to shake a pen full of Shimmer ink to stir up the particles without getting your cap full of ink? Should a pen full of Shimmer ink be stored nib up or sideways? And do pens with Shimmer ink tend to hard start, or is that just me? Great question. Okay, so I have a pen here that I actually have inked up with one of my favorites, J.R. Bond, 1670 Emerald of Chivor. You can actually see, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Sorry, you're going to get to see my 3 days of stubble here from having not shaved, but here you go, Emerald of Chivor. And as I turned the bottle, I literally just shook and filled this before, right before I started this video. You can see how the stuff is settled out in the bottle, just as we've been talking here. So before I go to fill, I just kind of gently shake, and I'm gonna see if I can, as I shake it, I'm not shaking it aggressively. You can shake a little more, the bottle you can shake a little more aggressively. There it goes. See that? So the stuff settles out pretty quick. So I'm gonna leave it here just for like a minute or so, and you'll see how much it's gonna settle out. So you gotta keep this stuff moving. That's the thing, is, this is more in like the pigmented ink category. It's not fully pigmented ink, it's not quite the same, but it definitely has particulate in there. That's how they get the shimmer. You can tell, obviously, because you look at it and you can see it's even starting to fall out there already. So the pen itself will do that too. So look, you can see I've had the pen on its side, and I've got the green on the top, and the gold shimmer is where the pen was laying down. So as you're using the pen, if you want to get the most amount of shimmer as you're writing, you need to keep the pen moving. But the thing is, you do not need to shake the living crud out of this stuff. It's really just a gentle kind of motion that you need to do. Like you'll see, there's the stuff there. Just as I kind of move it back and forth, it's going to solve it. You do not need to do this, which is too much, and then you end up with ink inside your cap. That is too aggressive. It got ink all over my nib and all over everywhere. It definitely did shake it up. But then when you do that, you're doing harm to yourself in a couple of ways. Not only are you getting ink all up in your cap, or this is something that other people do too, is they don't think about putting the cap on, and they go and they aggressively shake the pen like this, and that is just going to get ink everywhere, and you don't want to do that. Just a gentle rocking back and forth. You might have to do it a couple of extra times. It might take you an extra 20 seconds, but you just do this. As you're writing, take a break every minute or two and just go back and forth a couple of times, and that'll keep that stuff suspended in there, and it'll keep it writing fairly consistently. So if you're shaking it aggressively like that, not only are you going to get ink in your cap, but you're also going to create a bunch of air bubbles inside your pen, which are going to cause flow issues, because those air bubbles are going to break the capillary action as your ink is trying to move through its feed, and you're already having to overcome the particulate that's in the ink, so you don't want to exacerbate the issue by putting air bubbles in there unnecessarily. So you just gotta get a kind of zen about it. Okay, I'm trying to get a shimmer, and I'm just gonna take it easy. It's just gonna take a little longer, and I'm just gonna shake my pen gently back and forth like this, and then write some more, and then gently go like this. You can just make it a habit. If you write a lot with these inks, write, shimmer, 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 and then when you pause, just kind of rock it back and forth a little bit, and then write, and there, and then you'll pretty much be happy. As far as storing it, I have to clean this out. As far as storing it, nib up or sideways, I don't think it particularly matters, honestly. I think nib down is probably what you want to try to avoid, because then you get the particulate that like wants to fall into the feed and kind of block it up. So I would try to avoid that if you can. Sideways doesn't really matter, or nib up. Nib up is probably going to be a little bit your safer bet, but either way, you're going to be okay. I tend to store my pens sideways when I can, because I find that just in general, as a complete and total blanket statement, I tend to have the fewest issues with my pens when I store them sideways. When I store them nib up, they tend to want to dry out just a little bit faster. But either way, don't sweat that quite as much. And then do they tend to hard start? There's certainly that potential for it to be there, because it's not just a conventional dye-based ink. It has kind of an X factor to it. And I think having a little bit of a hard start is not unusual. If that's the case, and if it's like a really frustrating hard start, you can do a couple of things. You can, especially if a pen like this, where it's got some kind of piston mechanism or something, you can flood the feed a little bit, especially if the bottle handy. Open the bottle up, take and drip a couple of inks or drops back into the bottle, or maybe dip the nib back into the bottle. Really try to saturate that again, because what you don't want is you don't want this particulate to be in here, have the pen sit around for a while, kind of dry out, and then you go to write with it again, and it's kind of hard starting because it has some of that shimmer that's in the feed, but you've got all the liquid that's back here that's trying to make its way through, and then you end up with that debris in the gutter kind of thing I just talked about a second ago. So you want to kind of just resaturate that whole front section there, and then you should be okay. If it's really bad and just really being frustrating, just dump the rest of the ink out, clean the pen thoroughly, and then ink it back up and try it again. I had this exact pen, this is a TWSBI Eco with a broad nib. When Emerald of Chivor first came out, I inked it up in this pen, had the exact same ink. I didn't use it, you know, this exact pen religiously, but I had it in here for 8 months. 8 months. And it would have a hard start, sure, but I wrote with it for 8 months before I needed to ink it up again. So it will, with, you know, the right type of pen, it will last a pretty decent amount of time, but other pens it may dry out faster. You may have a different experience with that.